Okay, so now we're picking up here with chapter 12. And chapter 12 is the Darl chapter. All right? And in chapter 12, Darl narrates Addie's death. And why is that an interesting study? He is not there. Huh? What? I did. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to read most of this. Pa stands beside the bed. From behind his leg, Bartiman peers with his round head and his eyes round and his mouth beginning to open. So you can see that Bartiman is really little if he's able to look around Anne's leg. Okay? She looks at Pa. All her failing life appears to drain into her eyes. Urgent. Irremediable. All right, so again, we have that reference to Addie's eyes. And Dewey Dale recognizes she wants Jewel, the one that she's petted so. Why, Addie, Pa says, him and Darl went to make one more load. They thought there was time, that you would wait for them, and that $3 and all. He stoops, laying his hand on hers. For a while yet, she looks at him without reproach, without anything at all, as if her eyes alone are listening to the irrevocable cessation of his voice. All right, look at the vocabulary, too, that Darl is utilizing. I mean, granted, this is in his mind. He's thinking this. But, it's much more elevated than any of the other characters. All right? And he has, not received an education. Then she raises herself, who has not moved in 10 days. So for 10 days, she has been dying. She's been laying in that bed, not moving. All right? Dewey Dale tries to get her to not raise up. She looks out the window and she yells at Cash. You, Cash, she shouts, her voice harsh, strong, and unimpaired. You, Cash. It's almost as if she's calling for their attention and Cash's attention. And he looks up at the gaunt face framed by the window in the twilight. It is a composite picture of all time since he was a child. Do y'all know what a composite picture is? All right. Do y'all know the ROTC portraits where they have each cadet's picture individually? That's a composite. All right. So here, her face in that window, it's like a composite of all the times that he has seen her look out the window at him throughout his life. Do y'all see that? Okay. So that's just kind of a bit of imagery for that description there. He drops the saw and he lifts the board for her to see, watching the window in which the face has not moved. He drags the second plank into position and slants the two of them into their final juxtaposition, gesturing toward the ones yet on the ground, shaping with his empty hand in pantomime the finished box. For a while, she looks down at him from the composite picture, neither with censure or approbation. Like she's not looking at him like she is angry or she is mad at him for building this coffin outside of her window, but she's also not looking at him with approval, which is what he wants. She's just looking at him. Then the face disappears. Mark this passage. She lies back and turns her head without so much as glancing at Pa. She looks at Vardaman, her eyes, the life in them rushing suddenly upon them. The two flames glare up for a steady instant. Then they go out as though someone had leaned down and blown upon them. So we have that reference to those candles that we had in the previous chapter where he's describing how her eyes look like the flames guttering down in iron candlesticks. So it's like all of the life comes to her eyes and then it goes out. It's like somebody blew out that candle. Dewey Dale, she cries, Ma. She gets very upset. She falls down onto her, crying on the bed. Vardaman peers. Another reference to teeth. He moves slowly from the room and he turns. Pa leans there. He's just kind of like looking at her, not really believing, but kind of believing what has happened. And then he says, darn them boys, meaning Darl and Jewel, who are in town. And then we have a font shift. All right, we've moved from a regular font to an italicized font. Still Darl. Jewel, I say. Overhead the day drives level and gray, hiding the sun by a flight of gray spears. In the rain, the mules smoke a little, splashed yellow with mud, the off one clinging and sliding lunges to the side of the road above the ditch. The tilted lumber gleams dull yellow, water-soaked and heavy as lead, tilted at a steep angle into the ditch above the broken wheel, about the shattered spokes and about Jewel's ankles, a runnel of yellow, neither water nor earth swirls. curving with the yellow road, neither of earth nor water. Down the hill, dissolving into a streaming mass of dark green, neither of earth nor sky. Jewel, I say. Okay, so he goes from narrating what is happening back home in their house with Addie's death to narrating what's happening with them. But note how many references to yellow we have. And remember, sulfur's yellow. Okay? So that's something that I want you guys to kind of think about. Cash comes to the door carrying the saw. Pa stands beside the bed, humped, his arms dangling. He turns his head, his shabby profile, his chin collapsing slowly as he works the snuff against his gums. She's gone, Cash says. She's taken and left us, Pa says. All right, so Cash comes in, and they have this discussion about Cash needing to do the best he can to finish the coffin, but that other people like the Tolls will come and help if it gets down to it. Cash goes back outside, and we hear the sound of the saw again, steady. Snoring. Sleep, like, sleep being a euphemism for death. All right, so Pa looks down. Dewey Dale's laying on her. She's upset. And then he tells Dewey Dale to get up and put supper on. Okay, so that's pretty hardcore, We've got, her mother has just died, and he's like, now go fix some supper. Go put supper on, Dewey Dale. All right? And then we have, some more commentary from Darrell, and again, with, this really elevated vocabulary. And Dewey Dale gets up, and she leaves the room. And then we have more information here from Darrell, okay? And he is thinking about Addie and how she's old and how she was sick and how Dewey Dale is going to go out and she's going to stand near Peabody because she wishes that he could help her with her situation. So, he's narrating additional things here that are happening. He talks about his father standing over the bed, and then he tries to smooth it again, clumsily, his hand awkward as a claw, soothing at the wrinkles which he made and which continue to emerge beneath his hand with perverse ubiquity. Shame ubiquity. SIT word. So that at last he desists, his hand falling to his side and stroking itself again, palm and back, on his thigh. The sound of the saw snores steadily into the room. So we have that reference to the saw again. Pa breathes with a quiet rasping sound, mouthing the snuff against his gums. God's will be done, he says. Now I can get them teeth. What's going on there? Now I can get them teeth. How? Huh? Taking her where? How so? Huh? He's not going to take her teeth. Everybody always wants to know if he's going to take her teeth. He's not taking her teeth, but you're on the right track. How so?
I guess he gets some type of...
Okay, so they got to take her to Jefferson to bury her, right?
Yeah.
And he ain't got any teeth. And he hadn't been to town in 12 years.
Oh.
So he's like, when I go to bury her, I'm going to get some teeth. So his wife has just died. And he's like, I'm going to get some teeth. Huh?
It's like, well, since he'll already be in Jefferson, he's just going to go while he's there.
Yeah.
What is it called?
But he says it too. Now I can get them teeth. So how does that characterize him? Yeah, his wife just died. Yeah, so that's really kind of building into the element of the grotesque, that Southern Gothic element of the grotesque. His wife has just died. They've been together for 30-something years. And his first thing that he says besides, Dewey Dale, go fix some supper, is now I can get them teeth. All right. So then they're still trying to carry the lumber. And Doll reminds Jewel, she's dead. You missed it. Booyah. Yeah. The 1930s. Okay, so chapter 13 is Vardaman. And remember, Vardaman is little bitty. He's the one that was just peering out from behind his father's legs. He says, then I begin to run. I run toward the back and come to the edge of the porch and stop. Then I begin to cry. I can feel where the fish was in the dust. It is cut up into pieces of not fish now, not blood on my hands and overalls. Then it wasn't so. It hadn't happened then. And now she is getting so far ahead, I cannot catch her. Okay, who is getting so far ahead he cannot catch her? Addie. How so?
Because she's gone.
Like her soul is out of her body, and he can't catch her. She's too far ahead. All right, and this idea of not fish, he had a fish. It was a fish. It was alive. But then when he killed it and he chopped it up, it was dead. So it was not fish. Because he's so little, he does not understand the concept of death. Okay? And so we see Peabody, and he's kind of like, he's a doctor, and he's figured it out for himself. You know, he equates it to a soul leaving an apartment or somebody moving out of a house. All right? And so Vardaman, he's trying to figure it out for himself too. All right, so Vardaman is upset. He takes off. He jumps off the porch. He runs out. He's crying. He killed her. He killed her. Who does he think killed her? Peabody. So what does he do?
Kills him.
Yeah, so he runs out. He gets a stick, and he starts beating Peabody's team of horses till they run off.
He gets what?
He gets a stick, and he starts beating Peabody's horses until they run off. Okay? And then he runs and hides in the barn. And the cow is in the barn, and the cow is like, please milk me. I'm miserable. Nobody's really been thinking about me in all of this. All right? And he's like, get off. Run away. So he goes back in. Cash comes in looking for him. All right? He hears the wood, but he's still kind of hiding out here in silence. He just wants to be alone. All right? And then he comes back, and he's thinking about that fish again. Cooked and et, cooked and et. Still trying to make sense of life and death, because really the only experience with death he has to compare to the death of his mother is this giant fish that he has caught and killed. All right? And no, they're not going to eat Addie. Okay. All right. Chapter 14, Dewey Dell. This is the last one we're doing today. Dewey Dell says, he could do so much for me if he just would. Who is she talking about? Peabody. All right. It's like everything in the world for me is inside a tub full of guts, so that you wonder how there can be any room in it for anything else very important. He is a big tub of guts, and I am a little tub of guts. And if there is not any room for anything else important in a big tub of guts, how can it be room in a little tub of guts? But I know it is there because God gave woman a sign when something has happened bad. So she's like, how can there even be room in me and who I am for this new life? But I know it's there because God gave women a sign so they know they're pregnant. Okay? So she's like, I'm alone. I feel alone. You know, I would let it come between me and laugh. She comes in. She looks at the fish. She can't make herself cook it. She hides it in the cabinet. She puts on some greens and she brings out the bread. Cash comes in looking for Vardaman. And he says, you know, Peabody's team ran away, not realizing that they ran away because Vardaman whipped them. And he says, get Vardaman to come and help because he can bring them back. And then she says, well, tell him to come to supper. So, you know, while she's doing all of this, it's just kind of like continuously coming back into her head about what's going on. So her family comes in and they're eating and she's, you know, having trouble concentrating. So she says she's going to milk. She's going to go out to the barn and she's going to milk the cow. So she goes out there and the cow is like nudging at her like, please milk me, you know, come on. And so she's like, hold on, you know, you got to wait now. I got more to do than I can tend to. And so she talks to the cow and she talks about how the cow has, you know, something in it like she has something in her. The cow has milk, all right? And then she sees Vardaman and she's mad at him because she feels like he's spying on her in her times where she's, you know, trying to be alone. Again, the cow nuzzles at me. You'll just have to wait. What you got in you ain't nothing to what I got in me, even if you're a woman too. All right? So, you know, she is having trouble just kind of going about her daily life and doing the things that she needs to do because her problem of being pregnant is all she can think about. Like, she can't mourn her mother like she needs to. You know, she can't tend to her daily chores and figure out what's going to happen with her siblings because this is like ever present. It's like constantly there with her, constantly at the forefront of her mind. And, you know, she is extremely concerned about it. She's very worried about it. And right here at the last line of chapter 14, I feel like a wet seed, wild in the hot, blind earth. That's probably the best description that she can provide for herself. Okay, so if you plant a seed into the ground and you water it and it gets warm outside, what happens to that seed? it explodes and it grows, right? So she feels like she's like on the cusp of that like explosion of that seed pod, okay? And she's lost in that hot, blind earth. You know, she does not know what to do. She does not have any direction. All right, so let's look at these questions. Okay, Darrell narrates Addie's death, and it's unusual because he's not there. He is with Jewel delivering wood. And then what problem did Darrell and Jewel encounter? They have the rain, and that's caused them to break a wheel or an axle on the wagon. And so when she dies, Annes looks forward to having what fixed? His teeth. All right, and Vardaman is upset and confused about the death of Addie and how it coincides to the arrival of Peabody. And so he blames Peabody, and he beats his horses and makes them run off, you know, in retaliation for what Peabody has done, killing his mother, but he didn't really. And then what thoughts does Dewey Dale have toward or about Peabody that he could help her if he knew? And how would you describe Dewey Dale's feelings? She's confused. Her problem was like ever present. It's ubiquitous.
What thoughts does Dewey Dale have towards about Peabody?
That he could help her if he would.
I didn't get a copy of the other questions you asked him.
They're right here. Okay, so going back to our character chart, you know, Darrell, he narrates Addie's death. His vocabulary is really something. It's elevated, which is interesting since, you know, we know that they're not very educated, okay? People say that he is strange. He really needles Jewel. You know, she's going to die while we're gone. He knows that Dewey Dale is pregnant, and he and Dewey Dale can speak without words. All right. Jewel, we know, is tall. He has pale eyes, and he has this horse that he is like taming or training. He has bad language. He doesn't like the other members of his family. He's close to his mother. Darrell thinks that Jewel is Addie's favorite. Cash is male. He's a good carpenter. We know he fell off of a barn and hurt his legs somehow. And he wants his mother's approval. All right. Dewey Dale is a female, and she had some sort of a relationship with Lapp, a tryst, like that encounter. She communicates without words with Darrell. She wants to go to town. She wants to end her pregnancy. She is worried. She is very confused. All right, she's the only girl. Then we have Vardaman. He's the youngest son. He's caught a huge fish. He blames Peabody for his mother's death. And he runs the horses off. All right. Addie was the mother. She was dying. We know just through some like hints that she taught school. She wants to be buried in Jefferson, and that she is laid without moving for the last 10 days, and that she has passed now. And we know that from several different characters' perspectives, she treated Jewel special. Okay, so Anne's is the father. He's got bad feet. He's lazy. He wants teeth. And he blames bad luck on the road. All right, so he's kind of like lifting himself out of the field of flame, and he accepts help from neighbors. All right, so Cora is religious. She's the neighbor. She's worried about Addie's salvation. She's taught school. She's judgmental. She goes on and about her chickens and the cakes and the town lady. Okay, and then we've not met Armstead or Sampson, but Tull is Vernon. He's married to Cora. He's a neighbor to the Bundrens. He helps the Bundrens. He's very practical. Called the doctor. Okay, we've not met the character of Whitfield, McGowan, or Mosley, but Peabody is the doctor, and he knows that if Ann's has called, it's too late, and he discusses what death is in his mind. We have not met Laugh yet, but we know he is a farmhand and he's had relations with Dewey Dell, and he is the father of her baby.